Let's talk about a term you've probably heard a ton: spiritual warfare. Right away, your mind probably jumps to some pretty intense, dramatic images, right? But what if I told you the real battle, the original meaning, is something completely different from what most of us think? So let's just get right into it. What is spiritual warfare? Seriously, when you hear that phrase, what's the very first thing that pops into your head? For most people, yeah, it's something kind of out there, intense, supernatural. We immediately picture this epic showdown, right? Almost like a movie, a high-stakes, supernatural clash between good and evil, a head-on fight with dark forces. And hey, it's a powerful image, for sure. Okay, so let's start with that version, the battle that we imagine. And then we're going to peel back the layers and see what the original text is actually talking about. Yeah, so the popular idea of spiritual warfare, the one you see in movies and hear about a lot, it involves stuff like casting out demons, verbally binding and loosing evil forces. It's all about these dramatic, supernatural clashes, really obvious attacks. It's this huge moment-by-moment conflict. But, and this is a big but, that's just not the full picture. To really get to the bottom of this, we need to do a little time traveling. We have to go back to the world of the people who first read these words. We're talking about first-century Christians living in a place called Ephesus. And get this, archaeologists have found the remains of around 50 pagan shrines and temples just in ancient Ephesus alone. 50. You have to imagine, these people were living in a world that was just saturated with magic, astrology, and all these different gods and goddesses that they believed controlled every part of their lives. So, into this world steps the Apostle Paul. And when he writes to these people, he's throwing a huge wrench in their entire worldview. Scholar Dr. Daniel Darko puts it this way: Paul is creating a counter-narrative. He's basically saying, hey, you know all those blessings you're trying to get from those 50-plus temples around town, you don't need any of them. Because in Christ, you've already been given every single spiritual blessing there is. And this context is absolutely key, because it sets up the big reveal, the surprising twist in his whole story. The spiritual battle Paul is talking about, it's not some series of crazy supernatural events. Nope, it's something much, much more personal, something constant. The fight is actually a lifestyle. Okay, so here's where we really see the difference. On one hand, you have the expectation, this mystical battle of binding and losing, big confrontations. But the reality, what the text actually describes, is a battle fought on the moral plane. The battlefield is actually the territory of our everyday choices. Dr. Darko, whose research is a huge part of this explainer, sums it up perfectly. He says, the spiritual warfare is fought on the moral plane by an ethical way of life. Wow. So think about what that means. The battleground isn't some distant, invisible realm. It's right here. It's in your integrity, your honesty, your day-to-day character. And this lines up perfectly when you dig into the original language. The text warns against the devil's schemes. Now, that word in the original Greek, it doesn't mean a big, obvious head-on attack. It's much more subtle. It means things like cunning, trickery, deception, even camouflage or baits. It's like a hidden trap you're meant to walk right into without even realizing it. So, okay, if the battle is ethical and the enemy's tactics are subtle, then what are your weapons? Well, this brings us to the famous armor of God. And we're about to see how this isn't about weapons for a supernatural showdown, but about virtues for a moral, everyday fight. Let's look at this ethical toolkit. Every single piece of this armor is actually a virtue. The belt of truth, that's about living with Christian integrity. The breastplate of righteousness, that's how you protect your heart, by making the right choices. The shoes of the gospel of peace, that's all about how you interact with people, how you move through the world. And the shield of faith, that's your deep trust in God that puts out those flaming arrows, which are really things like doubt and temptation. But wait, what about prayer? You might be wondering where that fits in. Well, here's the interesting thing. It's not listed as a piece of the armor. Dr. Darko suggests we think of it differently. It's not another weapon you just pick up. It's more like the air you breathe while you're fighting. It's the constant support system for this whole ethical struggle. Okay, so this brings us to maybe the most important part. What's the goal? What are you trying to accomplish in this kind of warfare? And again, it's probably not what you're thinking. The goal is simply to stand your ground. See, this fight isn't about going on the offensive and trying to gain new territory from the enemy. Paul's whole point is that the war, the big decisive victory, has already been won by Christ. So your battle, our battle, is a defensive one. It's all about maintaining your position, holding on to your moral and ethical standing in a victory that's already yours. And you can see this hammered home in the text itself. The word stand shows up 4 times in just a few short verses. Stand against, withstand, stand firm, to stand. The message couldn't be clearer. The entire focus is on holding your moral ground, not trying to conquer new territory. So that leaves us with a pretty big question, doesn't it? If this whole idea of spiritual warfare is really about a daily ethical battle, a fight for integrity and character, then it forces you to ask yourself, where's your front line today?